Hey,
All
everybody.
right.
So, welcome. Our guest today for our artist conversation is none other than Laurel Manning. And Laurel is here. And
He has been with us for over 20, 25 years
21
and
years.
21 years. And Laurel is the most
I
exceptional
just counted up to
person.
a couple of weeks ago. 21 years.
21 years. So he has been creating with us for over 21 years in all capacities. Laurel is a fantastic actor. He's an amazing director. He is a playwright. He is a filmmaker. He is an incredible teacher. He teaches for us at the Barra Group how to create your own films. And he has been just a major, major part of our community. And there's Shannon. Hi, Shannon. And we're just going to ask you to turn your thank you. Major person in our community, and he has participated in all those forums with us. And we were able to do his beautiful play, Awake, last year, which was so empowering because Laura was also an actor in that. He also directed it and also wrote it. So he is a quadruple threat. And some other things that he has done with us, we're going to talk about Awake a lot because it really was dealing with a lot of the issues
that are
of
current today.
the
But he also did Enemy of the People
he directed Enemy of the People.
and co-adapted it with me. And
And he also did a short play, Happy New Year, which turned it into a short film and then a feature film. And then he also did a play Release years
Yeah.
ago, which I got to participate in. So
We,
we are just so, so blessed that Laurel is here with us tonight.
great. So, do you
I
have
thought
any?
that was a nice
It
introduction.
was pretty
So,
good.
um,
Do you have? You want to start?
you can ask a question.
Oh,
Right?
I'll ask a question.
sure.
Okay. First of all, Laurel, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm healthy, thriving, safe for now. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and in my apartment. So,
What have you
uh,
been doing during during this lockdown time?
lockdown, I was doing a lot of teaching because not only do I teach at Barrish, but I also teach at Sarah Lawrence. And so I was full time this semester, and that was 3 to 4 classes a week, plus the Barrish classes and stuff. And so it was intense. And so it was maybe 10 3-hour classes a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just teaching constantly and then going out of my apartment maybe once a week for like 2 months to get food and stuff, and occasionally do laundry or drop it off. So it went by really fast. I didn't have time to really freak out. I was able to catch up with a lot of friends and check in with my friends and loved ones a lot more than I had been
Yeah, I've
because I've
noticed
been,
that for me
yeah,
too. Like old
yeah,
friends, right?
yeah, college friends, people I haven't spoken to in years,
Yeah.
scheduling calls with them or Zoom calls with them. Hey, how you doing? And it's like wild. So that was a fortunate thing that did happen as a result of being locked down. And thankfully, as far as to my knowledge, I wasn't um, sick. Although I'm
Laurel,
convinced I may have had it. Yeah, what is that?
no,
I don't
there's
know.
just kind of, there's a little bit of a
Somebody. Make sure
noise.
that you mute your microphone, everybody,
Oh,
except for
someone's
Laurel.
eating or something.
Or if you're touching your
Somebody's
keyboard or
pay attention.
something, or you're touching
Okay.
your,
Anyway, so
but let's
yeah.
dive into Awake. So
Okay.
we did this amazing play last year called Awake. And Laurel, do you want to talk to us about Awake and what your inspiration was for doing that, what the message was that you wanted to get out with those plays? And I'll start with that.
Well, Awake was, if, for those who didn't see it, was a collection of 9 plays or 4 plays. What was it? 6 plays and 3 monologues that we put up. And it was a very heavily diverse cast, and it touched on many issues that are still, unfortunately, really relevant today, whether it's most of it was racism and prejudice. We also dealt with school violence. We also dealt with the immigration issue. And I basically was inspired to write that because I was frustrated. I wanted to see the kind of theater that I wanted to write. I just decided to write the kind of theater I wanted to see on the stage. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to see a really, really diverse cast. And so one day I sat in my apartment and just started writing plays. And a lot of things were on my mind, and I wasn't journaling at that time. So I just started to just let out my frustrations. in through various characters, and it developed over time. So I then had a collection of plays. I had some friends over, former students who become friends of mine, invited them over one weekend and read. I think maybe we read 4 or 5 of the plays, and I just wanted to get some feedback from them, and the feedback was pretty positive. So then I think you guys had a kind of I was in Seth's advanced directing class for, I guess you call it, for professional directors, I guess. I remember it was a bunch of us in there, and you gave us the main stage that summer to do whatever we wanted over a period of time. And so I signed up for a slot to do a reading. And I remember meeting Christine Serker at the elevator, and I said, hey, I want to do a reading. I want you to produce it. You want to read these plays? And so I read the plays, not knowing what she would think of them. And she called me back maybe a day later and said, I love these. We got to do these. So then she also became like a dramaturg along with the project. And so as I got more and more inspired, more ideas, more issues that I wanted to explore via theater came to me, and I started just write and write and write. And so then we kind of like shaped these, and we did several readings, and then eventually we did the production in, God, I forget when was it, 2019, January of 2019, which was one of the highlights of my artistic career, I think.
Yeah,
Definitely.
the plays for me, I don't know how you feel about them. The plays for me were sort of structured as, I would describe them as conversation starters. Like
Yeah.
they would basically, each play delved really quickly into a situation where you get something that's happening that's, got a lot of conflict and everything, and it gets to a crisis, sort of like what would be the word, like a critical point.
Yeah.
Then it sort of ended. And,
Yeah.
and was that by design?
That was designed because I didn't want to be looked at as having the answer to these things. I just wanted people to have conversations.
Yeah.
Right, so we're throwing the questions out with the plays,
Yeah,
and by throwing
exactly.
the question out, it gets that conversation going,
Yeah.
and you got some rough conversations going after
Yeah,
that.
and there was, I think Emily had put up a bulletin board, or you guys decided to put up a bulletin board and get people's thoughts, and it was really amazing to see that pretty full every night afterwards, and how people were touched by it. And it was really important for me of each issue that I was exploring, to see both sides of it. Some of that was painful for me to write, because I'm clearly on this side or whatever, and I didn't want that to come across in the writing. So I was listening to a lot of whether it's in conservative radio or podcasts, and just trying to identify with the other side in certain issues, and just try to write a really truthful and fully fleshed out character.
That's a regular practice for you, isn't it? I mean, we often talk about that.
Yeah.
That you listen to podcasts what are some of the podcasts that you tend to listen to the most?
Oh God, I hope this isn't like, they don't take a clip of this and play it somewhere. I was like listening to
Watch
later
out.
on. He supported you, whatever, cancel culture. Anyway, I was listening to, I tried Fox News, I just couldn't do it. So I would find certain podcasts. One person I listened to, I tried Alex Jones, I couldn't do it, it was too extreme. So one person I did listen to a lot was Ben Shapiro, who I did and tried to really honestly listen to him in such a way that I could understand where he was coming from. And to be fair, he did make some interesting points about certain things, but he kind of cherry pick information. I don't want to get into him, but that allowed me a way in. And I also had a lot of conservative friends, which I still do have. And I would just simply call them up and we'd talk. And one of the gifts that I have as a writer is that I'm a listener. And so a lot of people will, most writers are, but I really can listen and just let people open up and make them feel comfortable in such a way that they will just tell me their truths as much as they can without me, what do you mean? I'd push back a little bit just to see what they would say. And then I would go home and just write everything that they said down, whatever stuck with me. And then I would have ideas about how to form a certain character. And then I would let other people read it just to make sure. And Christine and I, a lot of the issues, one of the plays we went through, we did this with all the plays in such that we went through just like with a fine tooth comb, making sure that every side was represented as equally as we possibly could. And I thought we were successful with that. So I think a lot of people said, I would love to see this play in the Midwest. You guys should take a production out there. Because I wanted people to come to the theater and be able to see themselves. What if it's white people? A lot of times you're going to see plays dealing with race. the racist is like over the top. And so any white person, and especially white liberal, will sit there and say, oh, that's not me. That's not me. So now
Right.
we're in the time where a lot of white liberals are saying, oh shit.
Right.
You know, I've been blind this whole time, or I have not been paying attention, and I need to read some books, I need to watch some documentaries, I need to listen and do the work, which is a hard road. It's going to be a hard road, but I think if you stick to it, it'll all heal us. It will heal us all in the end.
What do you think, where do you think the, amongst people that you know that seem to you like, decent people with real good social consciousness
Yeah.
and all that stuff, where do you think the blind spots mostly are?
That's a good question.
You mean the people that blind spots in terms of what, race?
Well,
Or?
like for like somebody. Well, I'll take somebody like myself. Where
Yeah.
I feel like I grew up in Northern California. I have my parents were definitely lefty leaning folks. My hero growing up was Martin Luther King. Um, I was part of grew up at the time of counterculture movements like the in the 60s and all of that. And I normally would like to think of myself as very open-minded and flexible and compassionate and all of that stuff. And yet, one of the things that's become so clear in the last 3 weeks is that there's just blind spots, that there's certain sensitivities that I'll speak for myself, so I don't end up generalizing, but that I just probably don't have. And it seems like
You mean you don't have blind spots, or?
no,
He does.
that I
We
don't.
all-
Oh, gotcha.
That I don't. I don't have any blind spots. What am I talking? No, sorry. That awarenesses that I don't have. And so it feels to me like, in the wake of all this tragedy, George Floyd's murder and all the subsequent things that are going on, that this stuff is appropriately being stirred up, and now questions are being asked and things are being talked about. And so my question is on that front, like, what do you think the blind spots of reasonable, that when you think of people, reasonable people that are they're good people, but they have blind spots, what kind of blind spots stand out to you as like the most common ones to you, or the ones that where people need to turn their attention most to educate themselves and be better citizens?
The luxury of not being involved or not listening, that's a luxury that you have. Where people say, oh, I don't see color, that's a luxury, that's because obviously, I think I was saying something, saw something the other day with Jane Elliott, and forgive me if I'm quoting her, but I've heard that excuse, why I don't see color. That means that there's something wrong with me. You don't want to see it. You don't want to talk about it because it makes you uncomfortable. That's how I interpret that.
Wait, say that again. I want to make sure I understand.
In that you see something wrong with me, so you're going to bypass that and just look at other issues that other qualities that I have. So that's how I interpret that. So because we are different, although we all came from the same place, race was something that was constructed decades ago. But I think the blind spots that I see is what I was saying, in that there's a luxury of not really listening and getting involved.
Right.
And now just think about it, it took a black man being killed live on national television for nearly 9 minutes for people to go, oh shit, is this what's really going on? Yeah, it's been going on. So when I heard that there were all these protests initially, I was like, yeah, I've marched, I've protested. What is so different about this one? And I think the fact that we've all been, because everyone saw the Eric Garner video years ago. And the only people out there were black and brown people mostly. There were some white people marching and protesting and things like that, some allies. But this one, it shocked me in a good way, in that I just hope that trend continues and that people really, really want to do the work. And it's also being led by younger people who are now saying, like, I think they've had their whole lives disrupted, unemployment, kicked out of school, having to go online and learn how to do Zooming online. And, it's all this frustration built up. And a lot of the black and brown people, it's like, we're unemployed. And on top of this, we have to watch one of our own get killed on live television. No, enough's enough. We're going out here and we're not taking this anymore. And I was completely behind that. I totally understood it, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, me too. And so when you think of the work to be done,
Yeah.
so in other words, I heard you just cite appropriately that, okay, so there's some kind of luxury that if you're not
Some people would say privilege, I guess, you know, I
yeah,
see.
if you have a
Luxury.
privilege,
Yeah.
privilege slash luxury, whatever.
Yeah.
So as someone who has that kind of privilege, what are the things that what are the things that, say, again, I'll just use me because I'm so wary of generalizing. What are things that I can do to take advantage of that privilege and use it for, the good, to all that stuff?
Dismantle the lens as much as you can that you look at life through. And then know that
So,
other
so
people,
like,
yeah.
how are we going to do that? So can you tell us how to dismantle
Well, I don't
the
want to make this a
Well,
tutorial, but
well, I mean, just
I was gonna
even
say, I
like,
don't
you
know if
know, or just
just
even like
Laurel has the
tools,
answer.
or just like tools on, I mean, that's beautifully so well
I would
said.
say one thing is listen, like you're listening
Listen.
now, and
You
then
said that 3 times, like actively listening.
read and realize that the movement is not about you, that you have a lot of catching up to do.
Mm-hmm.
And read, research, all that kind of thing. It's going to take that. I see a lot of things on Facebook or um, Instagram or whatever, people posting. It's died down a little bit, but I still see it going, and I'm really proud of that. And I just hope it continues because it will be hard. There will be people like I can have this conversation with you. There might be other Black or brown people that don't want to talk to you, and you have to be fine with that, you know,
Yeah.
because we've been dealing with this all of our lives, you know, and you're just arriving at the party, I guess, and in a sense, and you have to just be patient with that. And I would say one of the simple ways is like talk amongst yourselves. What can you do? Don't ask me, ask your friends, you know. One of the ways to fight racism is to stamp it out wherever you see it. You know, someone says a really uncomfortable comment, call them out on it, even if it's a family member. I'm sorry, I've been in situations like that, and I talked about that in Awake with the In Connection. And that's, and just getting amongst yourselves and just reading. I think I heard Leslie Kreitzler, was it last week?
Kritzer, yeah,
Yeah.
Leslie
Kritzer.
Yeah.
She said that she and some of her friends were getting together. I'm assuming she meant mostly white people. I'm assuming, I don't want to make an assumption, but I am.
I don't know.
That they were getting together and doing readings and things like that and talking amongst themselves about how they can be better. I think that kind of stuff is important, you know? In terms of your theater company, our theater company or the Barra Group, definitely more diversity in terms of like, I know that there's a push to get more diversity in terms of the teaching staff, so that it be very multicultural and very diverse, more Black and brown people teaching, so that would attract more of a diverse student population.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you as a theater company, you have to look at yourselves and say, what kind of stories am I telling?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it can't just be through your lens, because your lens is limited. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah.
You know, as beautiful and as rich as those stories are, there are other stories that need to be on that stage as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
so it's really opening the eye to that. And if you don't know it, get other people to help you look and find that material. You know what I mean? And I think this is a really crucial time for, I know that the Barra Group has given up its space, but the silver lining is that the Barra Group could reinvent itself in a sense.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
what
for
I mean?
sure. And
Yeah.
and actually,
Well,
Yeah.
and
we
Laurel,
were.
you have like helped us look for because Laurel was our lit manager for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Would be piled, have scripts piled up, you know, behind him all over him. So he has like been he read for us for many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
In
7 or
fact,
8 years. I left that job just to do the film. So
We did a mockumentary about a theater company, and we had this one scene where Laurel in real life was our lit manager, but he was playing the lit manager of this documentary. There's this one scene where there's just piles and piles of.
oh yeah. Was that the Emory thing that the real
Yeah,
life
yeah, we did
real
with Emery
theater
Van Cleef.
pilot? What
And
happened with that? I thought that was really promising.
it is. It's very funny. It ended
Yeah.
up. We have it somewhere.
I have a DVD of it in my drawer.
There's a scene where like there's piles of scripts, and the interviewer says like, so what is it? What do you do as the literary manager? And you go on and said like, well, I read through all the scripts, and we really take pride in finding the
best
widest range of material, and just the best stories ever. And, and
Yeah.
he goes, what's that you're reading right now? And you go, Gangbang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the camera pulls back, and there are all those scripts around you.
Yeah. That was a fun project. Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then I think I can fill in the blank of this, but
Yeah.
something that was so intriguing. You said dismantle the lens, right? And
Yeah.
what I'm getting from it, I just want to see if this is what you're saying. What I'm
Yeah.
hearing is that to dismantle that, it starts with your, you didn't use these words, but this is kind of my take on what you said,
Yeah.
that you're aware that you're looking at it through a particular lens.
Yeah.
You're aware that, you know, you need to look through a bunch of different lenses, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to be, you know, more complete artists
Yeah.
and
Group of people with different viewpoints and like get sit around and have them read scripts and people talk about it and you
Right.
know
right.
you make the decision what we're going to go with this one and time to take some risks. You know, I
Right.
know money's an issue, but you know, I think this company it changed my life. I mean, most of my greatest artistic achievements have been with this company or through or connected to it somehow. I've done stuff outside of here, but I was always really proud of the things I did here. And
Yeah.
because you guys gave me the freedom to do what I wanted. I mean, you came in with notes and things like that, which artistic directors are going to do.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of freedom here. Yes, I was frustrated at times, but I'm an artist. And so, but there's one thing I thought was missing was that, you know, a lot more diverse in the storytelling, you know? So I think there's an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, you talked about, you know, you talked about how we're losing the space and we are
Yeah,
letting go of this space, but actually it's sort of an interesting thing. You know, we
yeah,
were in the process of letting go of that space anyway. In other
yeah,
words, we've been looking for other space
yeah,
and um, the in a way, this whole thing has, if I look at it as glass half full, which is
yeah,
actually not that hard to do,
yeah,
it sort of kicked us into the future.
yeah,
Uh, you know, it's all of a sudden like, oh no, we're getting in outer space. Like that, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
yeah,
So I agree with you that it is a time on all fronts to sort of reinvent the wheel. And one of the takeaways I have from this, going through all of this, both the virus and the Black Lives Matter movement and surge in social awareness, is that that's a constant process. That this,
hmm,
you know, the world is changing so fast,
yeah,
and that we all have to, you know, adapt and change quickly in order to survive. And yet, one of the things that I find really heartening about this whole response to the virus and everything
yeah,
is how quickly we adapt. You know, overnight we were, you know, just the three of us talking here, we're all of a
hmm,
sudden conducting all our business on Zoom overnight. Um,
yeah. I think when we had the lockdown, Sarah Lawrence, we were just going to spring break. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to rest for a week. I teach at Barrish on the weekends and I'm just going to not, because I then had to spend all week trying to figure out how to like transform an acting class and make it exciting for these kids on Zoom. And then
yeah,
that spilled over to my Barrish classes and making it very exciting. So, because I just felt sorry for them because a lot of them couldn't make their student films. They couldn't, you
Right.
yeah,
know, they weren't going to have a proper graduation. And
Right.
yeah,
so, and then they had to come back from spring break and sit there and stare at me and my painting on the wall. So,
yeah.
and so I wanted to make it as exciting as
Who did the
possible.
painting?
Oh, that's my friend Ludovic Inkoff. He's a young Cameroonian artist. That was a gift from him because when he first moved to New York, he first visited New York. I let him sit, you know, flop on my couch for a week.
Mm.
So he said that is a thank you. His
Yeah,
style has changed tremendously since then. He's like international now. It's crazy how much he's
Right.
blown up. So if
that's,
you get a
well, that's
chance
great.
to, hopefully you can buy one of his paintings. They're pretty expensive, but anyway.
Are you
Great.
are
We have
you
an original
are
there.
you
Yeah.
during this time are you writing in terms, you
Yes.
know, because you're a screenplay writer as well, and
Yeah, I'm working on my second film, which we're finally getting together and trying to get done maybe in the next year.
hmm
Second feature film. I did a reading at the Actors Studio of a new play that I called the Zen Arcade, or The Man Who Killed God. It deals with, it was inspired by the old Dylan Roof
hmm
shooting, the Emmanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina,
hmm
which and very, very, very dark piece. And that stayed with me because I'm from South Carolina. I was born in New York, but I grew up in South Carolina. And so that killing, that murder,
hmm
that terrorist act basically troubled me for years. And I wanted to speak out on it somehow.
hmm
And like as I like to do with most of my plays, I like to layer them with other issues and things that are relevant to it. And
yeah,
I was very and how the Black church, we are sometimes so traumatized that we will I can't speak for all of us because we're not a monolith, but we see a lot of tendency to us to quickly forget and turn it over to God because the pain is so great. My theory is that the pain is so great we can't deal with it, so we have to take something higher than us. And so I wanted to deal with that as well from the point of view of the Black family. So I did a reading of that, and I was going to work on it, try to work on it in my free time, but it was such a dark subject. I didn't want to, and COVID was happening. I didn't know. I wanted to write happier stuff.
Yeah.
So, but in the light of the whole George Floyd thing and the protest, I decided to go back to that, and at some point this summer. But there's a surprise piece that I'm working on, which you'll hear about soon. I want to play with the whole Zoom platform. So
Okay.
That's
that
great.
deals with these
Well,
current
that
times.
sounds like a really inspirational, a very
Yeah.
inspirational piece. And maybe Laurel, could you just kind of still your earphones just a little bit because it's.
I
Oh,
think it's your mic is running
your
on,
mic.
shit.
bumping on
Yeah,
your
it's bumping on
Oh,
something.
is
shirt
it?
or something like that.
Yeah,
Is that better?
Yeah, that is
yeah,
better.
that is better.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's
Good.
better.
So this is a time where we're going
Can
to
I ask one
open
more
it.
question?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So,
Sure.
so
Not yet.
Laurel, what do you think the responsibility of an artist is now in these times?
To be truthful, to tell the truth, I think if you're going to work on art, because I've heard a lot of artists or writers say, I can't write anything right now. I'm not inspired. I'm just too overwhelmed with sadness and frustration. For me, writing is therapeutic. Um, and so that's my way of dealing with it. So, yes, protests, go to vigils, that kind of thing. But for me, I was whenever I go to them, I always want to do something. For me, I just need to do something bigger that's going to feed my soul as well, because there's a lot of pain and this time has brought up a lot of stuff for me. Just I went back and I said the first time I was introduced to racism was probably at 6 years old. And at a county fair, that memory came back to me.
What happened at the county fair?
There, state fairs, they go to different towns or whatever. So my dad took me to the fair one year, and I used to go with my cousins. And so we went one year, and he basically, I didn't get to go because of some reason, but he took me before it closed. And so we went, I got on a ride. He took me around to all the rides, just him and me. And sometimes he got on with me, sometimes he didn't. So there was one particular ride that he got on that it wasn't for adults. So this guy, this really white guy with rotten teeth, I remember, basically picked me up, and he goes, go through the turnstile or whatever. My dad's watching me, and he goes, "Oh, if it isn't another little Niger, And I didn't know what that meant. You know what I mean? But he, and then he said goodbye, and he kept calling me that. And so we left, and we got back in the car, and my dad, I said, "Dad, what's that word?" And he goes, "What?" And I said, but it wasn't pronounced like it normally is. It was a "nai," that's the way he pronounced it. I don't know if it was the accent or whatever, or he was trying to hide what he was trying to say. I don't know. And my dad said, who said that to you? And I said, the guy on the ride, and my dad, we got out of the car, and my dad took me, we went back inside, and I don't know what he said, but we went back to that ride. I just remember he said, stay here. He went over to the guy. I don't know what was said. I just know the guy was going like this. That's all I remember. And we got back in the car, and my dad didn't say anything on the whole ride home. And remember, he told me to go to my room, and my mother and him had a conversation. And then she came into my room, and she had the talk with me, which is the talk, which is all Black parents give. Most Black parents give their kids at some point about the real world. Mm-hmm. So, and we had a discussion about it, and she said there are going to be some people. I don't remember exactly, it was 5 or 6 or 6. Something about there's some people who are not going to like you because of your color of your skin, which she mentioned Martin Luther King. All this is going in one ear after the other. And I'm like, why? I don't remember what she said, but I remember it was the talk. And I got to see it later on in first grade, later on that year when, I went to mostly all white school. And so people would be invited to birthday parties, but I wasn't invited. or me and another Indian kid in my class. We weren't invited to the party, and so all the kids would get in this big van after school, go to the birthday party, and we were like in the parking lot with our parents. And that was my first introduction that I remember
Yeah.
to it. And so that came back to me recently. And I was thinking when I was writing my journal, and and it's a very, very vivid memory. There's a lot of things you just push down, and so that's what a lot of people, we deal with this stuff all the time, but that's the first instance that I remember.
Yeah.
It happening. So
Yeah. That's amazing. We only have this time always goes so fast. We have about 11 minutes left, and I do want to open this out and hear any questions from anybody. So if you have a question out there, just go to the participants button and select raise your hand. We'll see the blue hand and we'll be able to call on you. And when we call on you, what you can do is unmute your microphone and turn on your video, and we'll talk together. And then we'll go to the next question and kind of repeat that cycle. While we're waiting for somebody to raise their hand,
maybe I'll ask one more question. So you, Laurel, are so disciplined about, like you said, you write, you do these things to keep yourself inspired. You have always had that. So what do you tell people that are paralyzed by this whole experience, who are artists who are paralyzed and can't move their creative energy? What would you say to people that are in so much pain that are paralyzed?
If you can't create, to do other things, read, watch TV, read a book, go get the blood flowing, that kind of thing. And so because if you try to force it, you're just going to be in a lot more pain because you're going to feel like a failure. So, and that's how I felt initially with the whole COVID thing happening. With the whole George Floyd thing, I was fired up. I'm like, okay, I'm going back to work. You know what I mean? So, so for me, it was fuel, not in the sense that I like to think about, but it was just my way of protesting. And so I would say, whether it's just like a writing prompt or something like that, but if you can't even do that, read, watch things, and maybe that will inspire you. Spend time with your loved ones, because that stuff is important, and they will fuel you. And just take it easy on yourself. That's what I.
Are there particular things that you've been reading?
Yeah, my friend Paul, whom I met through Awake, actually came and saw it, gave me this book called Theodore Allen, called The Invention of the White Race. He's been wanting me to read it for the last couple of years, and so last year or so. So I finally got it, and I'm reading it. I got a whole big library of stuff that I'm reading right now. A lot of stuff I'm going back. I had my awakening, I guess, in college, really, when I took a African American Studies course, and I was awakened to the real world in that course. And so I've been going back to a lot of those books and buying some new books. But also, I don't want to also get depressed and enraged all the time. So I make sure I read some fun stuff, as well. There's a book I'm reading called American Spy, which was written by one of my students.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was on Obama's book list. So I'm really
American
enjoying that.
Spy.
Yeah. Do I have it here?
What's the author's name?
Lauren Wilkinson. Do I have it? It might be on the. Yeah, she doesn't know. She mentioned that in her.
Lauren Wilkinson.
Wilkinson, yeah, and yeah.
Great. I think we have a question from Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn's your own. So Glenn, turn on your video, and there you are. Hey,
Hi, Glenn.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Hey.
Laurel.
Glenn was the AD for Awake, so just let people know he was my right hand. Him and Christine.
Thanks. That was good stuff. How timely. I have a question for you that's about, and I think could help. There are like directors here, writers here, actors here, and you've done all three, obviously. As we all deal with this, our platform is all Zoom now. Have you found any tools or ways of doing it in a way that like will help the actors feel like they're in the same room as much as possible, and also help the audience feel like they're all in the same place too? Because I feel like that disconnection is the hardest for me to bridge as far as like rehearsing a piece.
We all have theories. I mean, we're experimenting, right, Seth? You're experimenting. Yep. I'm experimenting. My students, my acting students, I was having them, sometimes if they're younger, I would have them look right into the screen and just like get, whatever. Other times I would have them put the right off, so they look in the same direction. But it's tricky with Zoom for me because it doesn't appear the same on everyone's computer, I'm thinking, you know what I mean? So the piece that I'm writing, I'm just, I'm still experimenting with it. I know I did an in-house reading last week with Christine Serker, and we were looking primarily, which was great. She was a director, and we were looking primarily at the camera. Seth, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I mean,
actually, I experiment a lot with this.
Yeah.
My feeling is that the best scenarios that I've discovered are basically emulating film. And so what you do
Yeah.
is if it's not direct addressed to an audience, you actually it's the same way you would in a self-tape. You
put the
place
the person
whoever
right
you're
up.
talking to on an eye line. It's either
Yeah.
just off camera left or off camera right. That's part of the trick. And the trick is curiously not to look at the screen just the way in film. In film, you don't look down the barrel of the camera because it's very strange. It
Yeah.
breaks the fourth wall. And so if you're trying to tell the story of a fourth wall offense, something that's happening in private, it becomes important not to do that. It's counterintuitive because you feel like, oh, there's somebody, I can see them, and we're connecting and all of that. But actually, I found it to not be the case. And so there's a couple of things. One is placing whoever you're talking to off camera. Then you also want to make sure that the eye lines are complementary, just the way it would be in film. So if somebody's looking off camera right in a two-person scene, the other person would be looking, off camera right just this way a little bit. The other person would be looking off camera left a little bit.
Does it look the same for everyone, Seth?
If you watch in speaker view, and that's the trick. If you go into gallery view, it gets weird. It's like the Brady Bunch.
Because everyone's,
eye lines get really strange. But if
Yeah.
you're in speaker view, it looks very much the way it would work on film. So that's some of the trick. The other trick is the mics on these things are so jacked up. Every time they're set with a really high gain, and so every time I watch myself, even like I know if I watch, I'm sure I'll watch this thing that we're doing now, and it's going to feel like we're all screaming. And so when playing a scene, there's a reminder like, yeah, the mic is so hot that I really can have a private conversation. And one of the gifts of Zoom that was unexpected for me is that it allows us to actually engage in truly private interactions where we actually literally are alone in our own space. And so there's that. And then the last tip I have that seems to be helpful is often because we're in a computer interface, we stop doing the things that we normally would do as actors. As actors, if we're playing a scene, we would be busy doing all sorts of activities and have props.
Yeah, that's a big thing I do too. Yeah,
and yet we get into Zoom and all of a sudden we stop and we just kind of sit here and talk. And so it becomes really useful and even important to do that same thing you would do live is like, ask yourself, what are the circumstances? What are things that this character might be doing physically, tasks and all that stuff, and then just get busy doing those things. So those are the Zoom tips.
I do that too. And Glenn, I would just say get some actors and just experiment. That's what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so wonderful too, just to throw out also that this form, if we can embrace it rather than resisting it.
Yeah.
So it isn't the live theater. It isn't two people in the same room doing a scene. So if we can find like what we are seeing that is really supporting the actor in this time rather than what we want it to be, just embracing the Zoom form and like finessing it even more rather than, oh, I don't feel connected.
My favorite pieces of original writing that I've watched as an audience member were actually written to Zoom. In other words, the situation was people were on a Zoom call. And I didn't find myself having to like kind of struggle through creating some, it was like, oh, I get it. That's exactly.
Exactly.
So there's that, yeah. That was
Do we
a
have
good
time
question.
for any more? Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, we do.
We have
There you go.
Benjamin.
I see your
Benjamin.
hands up, so go ahead and do your thing. Benjamin Culpepper.
Here he
He
comes.
left.
There you go.
Oh no, he's coming on. He's coming on. Here he
There he
comes.
is.
He's coming on.
All right, there we go.
There we
Hey.
go. Hi,
Hey.
Benjamin.
Hi. Hey, Laurel. First, thank you for sharing your story. Just wanted to get that out of the way. But also, you mentioned that in this time, writing's important as like for you, especially to, detox or to protest. And I've started writing, but I know there's definitely days where I'm like, the piece that I've been writing, it's not happening today. So there's there's got to be like an exercise or something, right? That like, on those off days, I think you mentioned a prompt. Is there like a good place to find prompts or other like
I give them out in my
ideas
class,
like
but you can look online. There's like writing
Yeah, sure.
prompts and things like that. Another great book is The Artist's Way. It's always a good
The
one.
Artist's Way?
The Artist's
Okay.
Way, you can get that from Amazon or go on, download it from some site or something. But that's a great one I've given to some people. But I give
Appreciate
artist
that.
prompts. And don't beat yourself up if nothing comes out.
Yeah.
Really don't, because
an
that's part of
example?
writing. I will say, sorry.
I was going to say, what's an example of a prompt?
Prompt might be like, I have hundreds. One of them might be like, they get more advanced. Something might be like, the worst mistake I ever made was, the biggest mistake ever, the happiest birthday I had was, whatever. That's really basic stuff. But then you can write, you give out situations. I have so many different, depends on what we're working on in the class. I have so many other ones. That's one I gave out recently, just to get people writing for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Imagine a character you're writing is in this situation where they have to lie about something, or whether they're caught cheating, or that's a popular one. They're caught cheating, or they are caught lying or stealing, and they write a monologue about them explaining themselves. A monologue can be a lie or the truth. So you come up with a scenario, and who are they talking to, and who's the character, and then you write for 15, 20 minutes. And then I give that one a lot in my classes, and you'd be surprised where people's minds go. First, like, what? I only have 15 minutes, and then they start writing, and it works. I don't know. So it does. So there's lots of them that I filed away over the years, and that's one of the things I've been teaching here for 7 years, 7.5 years here. I've grown really as an artist, as an actor, as a director, as a writer. For much, that's really elevated me so much in that way. But don't beat yourself up, because I tell some of my screenwriting students that say I'm fortunate enough to have like a writing schedule, and say I'll write 12 to 5 is gonna be my writing hours, and I'll sit down. 12 o'clock comes, 1 o'clock comes.
Yeah.
Oh, let me read this article on Facebook. Oh, what do they write? What? Oh, shit. And then, all of a sudden, 3:30, 4, and other times I sit down and I can't stop writing. And so all of that is part of writing, I tell people. Your mind is clicking, and I have what I call the muses that help me. I call them my ancestors, whether it's my grandmother, great grandmothers, or whatever, and they're all women, and if they're ready to write, they're ready to inspire me, they will sit down and they'll say, okay, it's time to go. Otherwise, well, we're not riding today, go ride a bike. I'm like, okay. So, and it's a very spiritual process for me. So I let them dictate to me when I'm writing. So.
Well, I
Awesome.
love, though, within your discipline that you allow that time. Like he said,
Yeah.
he kind of like, okay, here's my time from 1 to 3. And if
Yeah.
nothing comes, but you're still giving yourself that time to like, oh, nothing's writing, but you're really being disciplined about that time, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And one book that changed my life briefly was that I recommended this book to Brian Rojas the other day, Daily Rituals. You can get that from Amazon. I think it's made 15, 20 bucks. Daily Rituals. And you'll see that every artist over the last few decades they all have different ways that they approach their art. Some will write at certain times, at 4 o'clock in the morning. Others, it's weird. And so that was liberating for me to find out that I wasn't a failure, that everyone has their own different process. So, and yours will adapt. You will adapt. It will change over time.
Thank you so much.
Good. Thanks,
Thank
Benjamin.
you.
That's a great question.
That's great. Thanks, Benjamin.
I have one other quick, Laura, believe it or not, like we're at the end almost.
I know.
Minutes to go. But I did have a question. You're wonderfully proactive. You're really exemplary that way. You didn't just write and act and direct or write and direct a feature film. You got it produced. You were at the helm of all of that. And I know you worked with people. I get that. But I'm wondering, I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't necessarily activate that part of themselves. And do you have any thoughts on that, about what allows somebody to actually to go beyond just having a dream or an idea, but actually start to make it happen?
We are in such a perfect time. This thing, you can get it to a film festival with this thing.
Yeah.
pick it up and start working with it. You know, I teach an intro to filmmaking class here, I teach screenwriting, and it's so easy to create your own work now. And you just need to push sometimes people so they enroll in class. But it's so easy to do that now. And when I made that feature, like I made the feature like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? It came out, it was released 7 years ago, but we shot it like end of 09, beginning of 2010. It's 10 years, you know, we shot it. And so I made several short films and music videos since then and directed a bunch of plays. But we didn't have this. This wasn't around. The idea of making something with this didn't exist. And so shoot little video projects, you know, just experiment, get your phone and just shoot stuff and make stuff. I think we had that 48-hour film festival when we were just make stuff. That was the motto, I think, or the phrase, the slogan. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because what always comes up for me in that is taking advantage of group dynamics. You know, that a lot of times I might not have enough inertia to actually get the ball rolling, but I have friends who collectively, you know, if we get together and work collectively, we do have enough inertia and we actually get it done. We sort of prompt each other. You know.
There is in the filmmaking class I teach through Barrish Group, promotion. So we, because I had to adapt to teaching on Zoom, which I was terrified of, but also thrilled because I love challenges. That's the thing, I love challenges. So I basically spent several weeks trying to figure out how to transform this class online, and we did it. And I think it's my favorite version of the class I've taught because people don't have a crew to work with. They sometimes have themselves or like one other friend. What can you do with what you have? How creative can you be? And I've been surprised at some of the how imaginative some of these people have been, some of the students have been. So I've been very pleased with that. So
incredible.
But just keep doing it. And play, you know, don't try to make a Quentin Tarantino film. Make something small and just learn from that and just keep going. You know, there's so many opportunities online to like take classes or to like a tutorial or whatever and just do it, you know?
Amazing. Well, Laurel, that was great.
Incredible. You
I'm
so
sure
amazing.
we'll have opportunities to do this again. And thanks for dropping by, and thanks for thanks for talking with us.
Thank you guys.
Oh, of course. And for everybody out there, you know, this will be posted at barrowgroup.org along with the other artist conversations we've had, and all of our online programming can be found there, as well as our regular, our free programming, our community programming that we're offering weekly, and also the regular classes and workshops that we have. All of that stuff is there, barrowgroup.org. All right, so I guess we'll say ciao for now, and
we'll bring
thanks,
everybody
everybody.
else on. Can we bring everybody's cameras up?
Yeah,
We'll just
that's
bring
nice.
everybody
Everybody
up just
turn on your camera.
turn on your cameras just to come in and
nice
say
to see
hello.
this community.
Hello. Well, let's say hello to my wait cast, Julia,
Yes, here they
Sandra,
are.
Nellie.
And there's a lot of people, you can just go over to the side and you know, see all the other people there. But it's so great to see everyone. Oh my gosh, so wonderful.
Yeah.
Hi Daniel. Hi. Yeah, so good. And everyone stay healthy and stay productive, and everyone looks fabulous, right?
Thank you guys. Have a great summer.
Thanks, Laurel. That was great.
Bye. Take care. See you later.
That's it.
Bye.
Bye.